Welcome to Parenting Successful Teens, the podcast that cuts through the overwhelm and stress of this phase and offers parents simple, practical, cognitive, science-based strategies for keeping their teens on track. Join Master Coach and real-life mom, Allie Irwin, to talk about real teens, real problems, and the skills it takes to raise successful adults.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of Parenting Successful Teens. I am so inspired this week because I got the sweetest note from a listener. She had just listened to 6 episodes and really identified with the things that I was talking about and the examples I was using. And so I'm all inspired today because I'm making these for you all. And just knowing that they're out there and that they're helping people is what makes me smile. So the topic I have for you today is inspired by a New York Times article I read about this woman who turned her 4-year-old into a productive coworker. I have said oftentimes that having teenagers and having toddlers is a very similar state of being in that, their brains and their bodies and the self-regulation, like they're going through huge growth spurts, both of those age groups. And so I have always seen a lot of similarities between the two. This author, she was talking about how she, like all of us are working from home right now and our kids are home with us. My college-age daughter is back home with us, because school has closed and they're all doing online learning. And I know a lot of you all are trying to get your work done while you have extra people in the house, extra distractions and extra demands. While the article was about how she helped her 4-year-old become more independent, I saw a lot of overlaps. And I'm going to put a link to the article itself in the show notes. So if you want to read the original article, you can. But really, all I need you to do to get, in the right frame of mind for this podcast is to imagine turning a 4-year-old into a productive coworker. Someone that not only doesn't distract you, but actually helps you stay on track. And to me, when I read this, I was like, that is a miracle. Like remembering what it was like to try to get anything done when my kids were little. If you're thinking that it's irrelevant or too late because your teen is almost grown, like implementing these strategies is too late. What I want you to know is you're not going to be able to do exactly what she did, but the principles she used are applicable at any age. And so I kind of wrote down like the big picture principles that she used. And principle number 1 is that 85% of the behavioral shift that needs to happen is on the parents, and that's good news. Okay? And I say this because so many people initially, not you all, but so many people that come to me, what they really want me to do is fix their kids. And that almost never works, right? Because their kids aren't that interested in changing. They think the parents need to change, and the kids aren't here. They aren't getting coaching. They're not looking for coaching. And as I said, they're not interested in changing. And so I think it's good news that we don't need them to change, that we can change the people that we have control over, that we can change. As we change, they naturally change as well, because it's kind of a dance between parents and kids, right? And if one partner changes their dance steps, the other partner necessarily changes. But if you think about dancing, like if you're trying to get your partner to do something and you just yell at them to move their feet differently, if you're trying to go left, you have an easier time just gliding them left with you than you do expecting them to go left and then you following. So that's kind of a weird example, but hopefully you got what I mean. I want to say that when I talk about parents changing, I say that with no blame. Okay, it's not that you're doing something wrong. Gosh, I just have so much compassion for all that parents try to do. And I think especially parents in the US raise kids in a culture that has monetized our parenting in the most insidious ways and then blames the individual parent when it doesn't work. Okay, they push us to do all kinds of crazy things. My mom and I were just talking about that yesterday, laughing about all of the lessons that my kids have had over the years. And I wouldn't change a thing, but doing those lessons because it was fun to expose my kids to a huge variety of activities is very different than the way so many people are sold these days that, like, if you don't do these certain things, your kid is going to fall behind. And that's a lot of what I'm hearing with people with younger kids, is that they're worried their kids are going to fall behind, because they're not on their regular schedule of activities. And, everyone is off right now. And so it's a great time to look at the pressure that's coming from outside, just because we're a little bit more insulated right now than we normally are. Okay, so that's a long way to say no blame. Because in general, our culture teaches us that it's our job to raise kids who reach their potential by enriching every single moment. Just remembering that those enriching experiences come into our families at a tremendous cost of time, attention, and money. It's a bottomless pit. More enrichment is asked than any parent or child ever has the resources to take advantage of. We need to take that pressure off, especially now. When I was raising my kids, it felt like no matter what I did or gave my kids, it wasn't enough. I was worried that they wouldn't be able to keep up with kids who were getting more enrichment advantages. And unbeknownst to me, because we didn't really talk about it, like we just talked about what we were doing, we didn't really talk about that pressure to always be doing more. So I didn't understand at the time that all my friends were feeling the same kind of pressure. And to break free of that trap, parents have to believe that what they're doing is enough. Like what you're doing right now, what you're able to help your kids do right now is enough. And believing that is always going to be an inside job. Okay, that's always our work as parents, because our culture will always tell you that more is better. That's the first thing that I want to keep in mind when I talk about the 85% of the shift that needs to happen happens within the parents, believing that what you're doing right now is enough. It's good enough. That's the first shift to make. And as I said, it's really good news that it's within our control, because we are the only ones that we ever have control over. Okay, you don't have control over your spouse, and you don't have control over your kids. Okay, sometimes your spouse and your kids will do what you want them to do, but that is a lucky thing when it happens. That's not something that we can count on. Okay, we are always our own best bet. So that's principle one. Know that 85% of the change happens within you. And it happens within you by starting to believe that what you're doing right now is enough. You don't have to be getting your kids to stay on the exact same track that they were before the shutdown. Whatever is happening right now is enough. Just take that pressure down. Principle two, reaching their potential is a red herring. Remember what I said, that our culture teaches us that it's our job to raise kids who reach their potential by enriching every moment. I was worried that my kids, like if I wasn't on them, that my kids weren't getting what they needed to reach their potential, which would mean that I had failed them as a mom. And you see how them reaching their potential somehow in my mind became partially my job. Which goes back to principle one, that where I talk about, like, we can only control ourselves. Like, we can't make people reach their potential. That can't be our job. And helping our kids wanting to reach their potential, like, we can want that for sure, but they are the people that actually have to do the work of reaching their potential. And it's such a pretty thought, that idea of helping them live up to their potential. Oh, they're so smart. They're so talented. I just want them, to live up to their potential. It's such a pretty thought that only later did I realize that it's a red herring. that it's not possible to reach your potential because your potential is a constantly moving bar, right? We see that in our kids. Like if they get into like the A-level soccer team, then we want them to be on the elite soccer team. They're excelling in math and we try to move them up a level in math. They're reaching their potential. It's like the more they do, the better they do, the more we raise that bar. And it's like that for adults too, right? Like once we've, run a 5K, then we go up to a 10K and then we maybe try our hand at a half marathon. Running is not totally my thing. But I have lots of friends that love running, and like whatever it is they do, then they want to run faster. And all of that is okay as long as reaching your potential becomes something fun, like it becomes fun to grow for growth's sake, as opposed to a pressure-filled reaching your potential. Because ultimately, there is no reaching your potential until the very end, right? Like until you stop growing, until you stop living, that is the only time that you have fully reached your potential. And so it's important to know that if you don't enjoy the process of learning and growing for its own sake, you can't teach your kids to enjoy learning and growing for their own sake. And really, learning and growing is the whole point of the teen years. And so if you're not enjoying it and helping them enjoy it, you're missing out on years of creating good family memories. Okay. And you're also missing out on teaching them a life skill. So instead of thinking of reaching your potential as a fun thing, what happens is you end up relying on willpower and external rewards. Okay, that's when you get into paying for grades or guilting people into finishing things, or, trying. A lot of the tactics I see out there are really honestly forms of manipulation. And it's both manipulation and external rewards, as opposed to teaching them to learn to love the process. And if you're relying on external rewards and willpower, you're never going to feel like you have quite enough of those things to make it worth it. Okay. And the best way that I can think of to describe it is the saying, unhappy journeys don't have happy endings. Okay. It turns out that annoying motivational coffee mug that they sell at Whole Foods was right. You have to learn to enjoy the journey. And once you as a parent have learned to enjoy the journey, then it becomes an upward spiral. Like it's easier for you to help your kids enjoy the journey. And then all their learning and growing inspires you. And, it becomes an upward spiral for the whole family. That's actually one of the things that I love about the teen years the most, is that it's such an intense time of learning and growth that I see parents really being inspired by their own teens to learn and grow as well. Okay. Sometimes our lives get kind of stagnant. We get good and competent at the things that we're doing, and we forget that how much fun learning and growing is. And I love seeing parents being inspired by their kids to try new things. All right. Principle number 3 is that it takes a lot of faith to parent this way. Okay. To believe that you're doing enough, and to believe that the journey is the important piece, not reaching those external goals, that takes quite a bit of faith in yourself as a parent, and it takes faith in your kids. And honestly, it takes faith in the world that you're sending them out into, right? That they will see the enoughness, that the only prizes worth winning aren't the prizes that get externally validated by your book club and your neighbors and your sister-in-law and all of those people in your life. You have to have faith that loving what you love to do is enough. Okay. If you only want to play one sport, or if you only want to be in the musical, and you're putting all your time and attention and passion into that, instead of crafting some kind of perfect resume that you're imagining some kind of college admissions person is going to read, it's going to make you acceptable, or like one specific kind of path, using our high school years to explore things that truly interest us And trusting that those things are going to be enough, that takes a lot of faith and for everyone involved. And I want to say that growing that kind of faith as a parent may be the biggest struggle, okay? Because it's so tempting to give in to all those external pressures and try to have your kid go through that checklist and check every box and then trust that that external checklist is going to be the path to a good life. Like, it's easier to do that, but ultimately it's so much less satisfying. Okay. You're so much less likely to craft a life that actually fits you and actually fits your child. So developing that kind of faith and then passing that faith on to your kids is the biggest benefit. Principle 4. Good parenting is a two-way street. When you get to the bottom of the New York Times article that inspired this whole podcast, the author realizes that her 4-year-old is not only no longer distracting her from writing, but is actually helping her stay on track with writing and off social media. And I want you to take that in for a minute. Like, remember when your kids were that young? 4 years old is preschool years. Like, that's not even a kindergartner. And she went from being a huge distraction, an endless source of requests, to being a helper to help her mom stay productive while they were all home together. Letting your kids teach you things is something that I personally work on with every single client. And so many clients resist in the beginning, saying, like, I don't know, they're slacker kids that only want to be on video games and like text their friends. And every single time, as we dig into and apply all of these principles, they start to see the ways that they can be inspired by their kids, the things that their kids can teach them, like things that already exist that they just weren't noticing before. And if you're thinking right now that your kids can't teach you anything because, you know, they're just doing whatever it is that they're doing, hiding out in their room 24/7, like, I want you to think of this 4-year-old that is now her mom's helper in getting her writing done. Because if they can do it, you can absolutely do it. And it's so empowering for kids to be our teachers. It's better for their self-esteem than a shelf full of good jobs and participation trophies. And when it's real, kids know it. When you're actually going to your kids and they're helping you do something, it's the best. And for parents, it's the best too, because it takes all the pressure off of us to have all of the answers, which we all know is exhausting, that feeling that we should, and it's impossible because we can't have all the answers. Especially, we can't have all the answers for other people. Like, we can't know what's best for them. That goes even within our family. Like, we think we know what's best, but we can't really know what's best. And so opening up the conversation so that we're learning from them and we're teaching them, it creates an environment that is a lot more open. Okay, you actually become so much more influential to your kids when you step back and let them teach you things as well. Principle 5 is the idea that now is always a good time to start. You could be doing better during this stay-at-home time because they're around, okay? Rather than waiting for, everything to go back to normal, whatever that's going to be. If you think about, like, how could things be better because we're all home together, as opposed to thinking that things are more challenging because we're all home together, okay? I'm really encouraging you not to put your life on hold as you try to get through this time, but that you use this time to get more of the life that you want. I think of the fact that we're kind of all on top of each other right now is, we're all like trying to work under the same roof, that it's actually the perfect time because it exposes more of everything, right? Like families are reporting having, like people tell me about having more dinners together and more walks and more game playing and puzzles and all of that kind of stuff. And they're reporting having more frustrations and more, now they feel like they're having to do everything, a lot of the things that the teachers were doing before, and they're having to monitor their kids in ways that they don't normally have to. And so being all together under the same roof at this time, it's amplifying everything. And so it's actually the perfect time to try to put these principles into action. And this is true even if it seems like your kid is heading out 24/7 in their rooms. And believe me, if that's your house, you are not alone. Okay. I was even on another podcast, Super Mom is Getting Tired. And I coached the other parenting coach on her frustrations about her kids spending all their time in their rooms and like not wanting to spend time with her. So just know that this is a good time, even if that's going on. Okay. One of the ways you can draw them out of their room is by letting them teach you something. And the more that you apply these principles to yourself, the more that they'll notice, because they're around to notice. These principles are timeless. Only the circumstances in which we apply them changes. They're countercultural ideas, and they're ideas worth exploring. And I really want you to try them. So I want to leave you with this thought. If you truly believed that this time could be your most fun, memory-filled, productive time ever, why would you wait? Okay, so I want you to give these a try. If you have any questions, shoot me an email. I'm always here for you at Allie@allieirwin.com. Or we can hop on the phone and you can tell me what's going on and we'll come up with a plan to make things better. All right, everybody, thanks for listening. Have a great week.